Paul Dehner of The Athletic covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Paul, appreciate you taking the time. How are we doing today, my friend?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Football's finally here. Like, we're done talking about the offseason, which I know you've had plenty of being in Cincinnati with the Jamar Chase whole era right now, as we're dealing with Drake May and Jacoby Brissett by me. So I'm excited Sunday. It's enough of bad offensive line talk, and we'll see him play. But, Paul, I have to start there. With Jamar Chase, as of the recording of this interview, still has not signed his extension, still has not practiced for the Bengals. What's the holdup between the Bengals and giving an extension to a top 3 receiver who is worth the penny? And the longer Cincinnati waits, the more expensive Jamar Chase should get.
I think they kind of had an idea that they wanted to do this before his 5th year next year. He's still got 2 years left on his contract, and coming into this, probably preferred the idea of doing it then rather than they liked the idea of doing it right now. That said, I think the market has kind of dictated where they can be and where this thing can go. And they've decided they're willing to negotiate with them and willing to go there, but the Bengals tend to do things last minute. They tend to do things where they don't want to give big guarantees. And that puts you in this position where you are days away from the opener, and these guarantees and these the willingness to go down to the final hour put you up against it. And, it's hard to say where they're at. They've been very tight-lipped, both sides, on exactly the status of how this all has been going down. But, they're in a kind of a tough spot right now, but we're all just checking our phones every day for messages and tweets and texts and cryptic Instagram posts to try to figure out where it's all going.
Along with checking the time of arrival of practice and what clothing he's wearing. But I understand it. I mean, you have a top 3 quarterback right now in Joe Burrow, of course. You have a top 3 receiver in Jamar Chase. You want to get him on the field while you still have Tee Higgins. But when you look at this receiving group, there still is Tee Higgins. I hope I say his last name right. Andre Yosiva. Maybe I got it right. Jermaine Burton and Mike Gesicki, who you bring in. That's not a tight end. That's a receiver. Is there still confidence in this receiving group, of course, playing with Joe Burrow, that they can get the job done on the field? It won't be the same level as Jamar Chase, but this can still drive an offense like what the Bengals have with Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I mean, they love where they're at with this receiver group and with this offense. I mean, Andre Yosivash, you were very closer than most get on the first one. Between Yosivash, Gesicki, you kind of have 2 guys that can take over that slot role that was vacated last year by Tyler Boyd, who's now in Tennessee. But they're very different players than what Tyler Boyd was, and they give more versatility to what they can do. And when Jamar Chase plays, that means giving more versatility to where you can put him, where teams are guessing where he's going to be every time that he comes out there. And they just have a lot more ways that they can adapt as they go. And that's really the key, with or without Jamar, to what they think the next level for this offense is give Joe Burrow more tools, more options at the line to where to move people, create matchups, specifically get guys that can win vertically and find more explosives. They haven't been able to find enough explosives as teams have sat in these deep shells in front of them and just refused to let Higgins and Chase beat them deep. They can find those, they feel like now, a little bit more with the type of personnel that's more versatile. And so they like that. They really like that and think that can be an answer to where they go next with or without Jamar.
And I have to ask, I think the probability is 0, even if he signed a contract yesterday, because he hasn't practiced all summer. But what do you think the probability is Jamar Chase plays week 1 this Sunday against the Patriots?
I don't think it's 0. I think it's 0 that he would play a full workload.
Yes.
He has been practicing in a way where he has done workouts on the side. He's been in meetings. I mean, you'll see a cart go off after practice to the bubble quietly and secretly in the corner, and he's got cleats and a jersey to go get work in. I think he's in a decent amount. His conditioning's okay. He's probably not in football shape from not having practiced, and you worry about soft tissues. The soft tissue injury thing, to me, is where I would be most concerned with Jamar at this point, almost more than anything, is just ramping up too quickly. And nobody wants to see that. We all went through Joe Burrow's calf last year for 2 months, and that's how that thing starts. And so that's a concern. I wouldn't see him being a full workload, even if he signed as we were recording right now. But I think you can still get enough of him in there where they can run a specific game plan. And they've been working this offense without him the entire offseason. So it's not like it's something where it's going to be totally foreign to them how to adapt.
So we got to talk the other side of the ball a little bit. Lou Anarumo is still the DC, but this was one of the worst run defenses in the NFL last season, Paul. And that is where I think the Patriots can make this a game. I'm not confident to say they can win this game, but with Ramondre Stevenson, with a guy like David Andrews still at center, and with okay blockers, especially in the run game, how much is that of a concern when you look into Sunday of, well, the Patriots can make this a game, maybe make it closer, and do the small things like eat up the clock, take the air out of the ball, keep Joe Burrow on the bench, because the Bengals had a bad run D. They lost DJ Reader, and I don't know how they can fill a size that big with Reader lost from the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, this is the path right now to beating the Bengals. I mean, this is their weakness. This is how teams beat them last year. In the AFC North, they were just dreadful against the run. I mean, one of the worst years in the division that we've seen from a run defense since it was invented in 2002. And then they lost Reader. And so they're trying to reformat the way that they play the run, and they believe that some of the communication issues that were a big part of their entire defensive problem last year are really fixed with Von Bell and Geno Stone entering at safety, just to have everybody feel like they're playing confidently, anticipate things like checks, reverses, runs, which is a lot of stuff that gave them a lot of trouble last year. But you still wonder, will they just get moved at the point of attack too often? You know, that was where Reader played so well. Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill are fine, but they don't really have that big body run stuffer in there. So they're going to count on those guys to be a little bit more disruptive run stoppers, and then count on Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, the linebackers, veteran linebackers that have been playing together in this system for multiple years, behind them to keep making those plays off of that. But will that work? I don't know. They think it will work better than it did last year. It's hard to imagine it being much worse than it was last year against the run. And so but yeah, if you're a team, you know, the Bengals early season is like this too. I mean, the Patriots, they have the Commanders, they're going to have Carolina, teams that have quarterback issues, passing game concerns potentially. They will probably look at it and say, let's line up and test this run D and see if this can be the path. And I think it probably is right now for New England.
It has to be. I mean, we don't know what they will get from Jacoby Brissett. He has experience with the system. Ramondre Stevenson now in this outside zone has looked good. And if there's a time to catch your Bengals, it's right now where Ramondre Stevenson is fresh and that offensive line is healthy. We'll see what we get on Sunday. Last one, Paul, you alluded to Geno Stone, Von Bell. Von Bell back for the Bengals. Are those two safeties that can help, you know, get past losing Jesse Bates last offseason, because you know how big of a loss that was for this Bengals defense?
They think this is going to make all the difference. The transition was a disaster last year. Losing Bates and Bell and switching to what was Nick Scott and then Jordan Battle and Dax Hill, it just didn't take. And they were, you know, the Lou Anarumo's system is so dependent on communication and stability and really understanding all the things that he's trying to do so he can cook up a lot of the different things that he likes to do off of it. And they just weren't able to do that. And too often, you know, guys in front of them or to the side would be turning towards them right as the play is, wondering, is there even a check? Are you going to say anything? And they were just getting gashed. I mean, they led the league in explosive plays allowed. People were running wide open, and it wasn't lack of speed or talent. They were just not running the right direction half the time. And so it's like, bring in people that have intelligence, savvy, understand the game, and basically they said, can we bring Von Bell back? And then all of a sudden they were able to. And so they were pretty thrilled about that, because he's one of the best communicators, and nobody knows Lou Anarumo's system better from the safety position. Geno Stone, a ton of picks last year in Baltimore, who they had a lot of respect for and think he's a really smooth fit for them. So I think they think that can make so much difference. Just everybody playing confidently and knowing where they're going can take you from being in the bottom quarter to being in the middle. And let's be honest, with this Bengals offense and what they could potentially be, that's what they are, right? They're an elite offense and an okay defense, and that's enough to get you to the Super Bowl potentially. So that's where they're trying to get to, and I think they feel like that can really just make everything feel much more stable.
You might have just alluded to it. What is a good season for the Bengals this year, Paul?
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase back in New Orleans, puffing on cigars, in recreating the LSU national championship. I mean, look, that's the expectation. They're all in. man. I
Yeah.
mean, they went franchise tag on Tee Higgins to keep him around for one more ride, knowing that they were going to give Jamar Chase the bag or whatever, and they've paid Burrow. That starts to really hit you after this season. They've been able to spend, and they have a lot of guys that are making money on the defensive side of the ball, and all of that kind of sets up to, hey, you got to go for it. You got to. They're in this. They are still in the window, and Burrow said the window is his entire career, and he's correct in that. But it's so wide when you have Chase and Higgins like that. Those three together are enough to win a Super Bowl. They've been close. When Burrow has finished the season, he has been to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game. So the expectations are for he can do things that Brady did, where if he's healthy and if he's out there playing, there's no reason they can't have the expectation be to be trying to play in the Super Bowl every single year. And certainly when you have the kind of weapons that they have right now.
Yeah, eventually Jamar Chase will be there on the field. And I know I said last question, but Paul, there's so many stories around the Bengals and a lot that intertwine with the Patriots. I have to ask about Tee Higgins because that's a guy I said the Patriots should go out and trade for. You don't want him to hit free agency. Get him into the building, then pay him. But what do you think the likelihood is that Tee Higgins is a Bengal next season after playing on the franchise tag?
Small. I mean, things change. I mean, you know how it is, man. One season and all of a sudden the things you talked about last year don't even apply anymore. But all signs point to him hitting free agency this year. I mean, the plan was to get him on a 5th year on the franchise tag, and then they let him go. Maybe they do some kind of a second tag trade scenario. Maybe things change dramatically. Maybe things get explosive with Jamar Chase during the season. Who knows? Like, seasons are wild, man. So things can change. But for now, I think the most likely scenario is that T plays. They hope he plays great. They hope he plays 17 games plus the playoffs. And then he goes and collects all kinds of money in March in free agency, and everybody feels like they can shake hands on that deal. And T has showed up. He signed the tag as early as he possibly could. He showed up at the beginning of camp. He has looked incredible in camp and looks like he's about, as motivated as a human being could be. And for a lot of reasons, it's obvious why. And so I think he's primed to have a big year and hit free agency.
Hey, the Patriots is over $120 million in cap space next offseason. They can go out and sign a guy like Tee Higgins, something this offense vastly needs. All right, actual last one here, Paul. What's your prediction for Sunday between the Bengals and the Patriots out in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think the Bengals are built to win this game handily. I mean, these early season games, teams that don't have any kind of continuity and have a lot of new pieces, it always takes a while to get everything going. Really, the first month of the season, the Bengals are just the exact opposite of that. Joe Burrow is coming off his first regular full camp in his life, really, in the NFL. I mean, he's not had this before. It's been appendicitis. It's been the calf. It's been lockouts. It's been coming back off ACL. For the first time, he's had all of these reps to bank and be ready. They're going to come in. They should absolutely have things kicking at a high gear right from the jump, and that puts them at such an advantage. They have so much talent playing at home. I think I have the Bengals winning probably by a couple of touchdowns.